A journey I began 2 decades ago, when curiosity and cultures made me step out into the world, led me home to India after decades exploring the world. In a millennium where everyone speaks of the future, joy has come to me at home. I find that our joy lies in ancient knowledge. A 5,000-year-old knowledge lives on in all those who still practice the timeless way. Joy and serenity are the gifts I continue to receive from this ancient culture I was born into. Bringing true joy to those who seek it too is the next stage of my journey. What is true well-being? Here in India, it is all around me, hidden in plain sight, the ancient living here and now in the present, within our reach. So Swamiji, namaskar.
Namaste.
Thank you very much for coming here.
No, my privilege and my pleasure.
I got that book that you wrote about the Ganga and the Himalayas. Tell us a little bit about that.
When we look at the Himalayas, one is that there is a certain symbolic reference that I made in that book, what I call as stillness. That aspect of stillness. So it leaves a certain image in our mind. When we sit here, when we even sit in just observing, or like as the rishis did, meditating and all that, that's a kind of that silence, that stillness, it kind of starts permeating us.
What's the background to your journey? Eventually, reaching the Himalayas and the Ganga, a monk, from childhood to today. Just give us a sneak peek into that journey.
Yeah, after just a few years of working and all that, that question had come strong in my life. To know it, something deeper, find a much more meaning to the pursuits that we are engaged in. Of course, in India, we all are exposed to this a lot more.
True.
Not just in one tradition, but all traditions, in India, we are much exposed to. So I had some understanding, and here and there I had some spiritual experiences which I was not able to understand at that point. I just thought, oh, this is just something that happened and I would move on with my life kind of thing. It didn't make sense to me until I was kind of working actively, and I started having some kind of factors of life, like stress or some questions, and some things happened. I lost some family, my mother and other things. So then I wanted to know a little more. So generally I would pick up some books and read, and as you know, there are a lot of teachings of Vedanta, Upanishads and all that. They are generally pointing to the journey of life, and not just as one life. As what we call as cycles. We are going in samsara, one after another and all that. So that made a very strong impact on me, that what I thought as the goal of my life is not what the rishis saw as the goal. They said there was some deeper purpose, that rather than just kind of, like having a so-called a good life, so material successful, or even that having a good family, they didn't see that as the
prime sort of purpose.
Yeah,
So
because
what did they see as the prime purpose?
yeah, so this is what they say in our in classical Indian things. There are 4 purposes of life that human beings normally gravitate towards. Purusharthas we call. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. That is, these are the generic ways of classification of them. For most of us, we are engaged in the pursuit of wealth or our desires, passions. But they said that there is something more, and that is for those who want to live a righteous life, a good life. So the theory of karma, which is the basis of all Indian philosophies.
Right.
Not just the Vedic ones, also
Buddhist
Buddhism and Jainism.
Pretty much all the darshanas.
Yeah, so they said that what you do in this life counts. That
not just for now, but
what you get. Like if you do a lot of good deeds, then where you'll be born. And this is a very simple thing we can see. Like basic questions. Why is it that one person is born in a poor family? One is born maybe, in
with a silver spoon.
Silver spoon.
Yeah.
Or take it also like, why is it that somebody naturally, has what they call child prodigies.
Right. True.
Like Beethoven and all.
Right. They just seem to pick off from where they left off.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
So that they computed all that, and then they came up this karma theory is the most I would say precise theory which can answer a lot of these questions.
True.
So from one point that could be a purpose for most people. You do some good deeds, you accumulate what they call as good merits. So then not just this life, your future life, you can like you have a good bank account, you can cash out,
Correct. And that's the moksha point.
No, that is a dharma point.
That's a dharma. So Swamiji, I want to talk a little bit about the specific practice that you offer.
Right.
Among the many practices I know that you offer, this particular one called Nirguna meditation. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so basically the Nirguna meditation is, you can say it's a little bit of for someone who has some experience on the spiritual path.
Okay.
Or some understanding.
Okay.
So when we talk about Nirguna meditation, this is not something that really it is not my creation. These are things that there was there in our Vedic scriptures. So what I noticed in that was that the ultimate pointers, the ultimate pointers of all these paths, especially the contemplative paths, is what they call the realization of the self, or the knowing of one's true nature. And what is this true nature? This is not something that has a certain specific form, like we can say, like the mountains, it has green, brown form,
right.
And color and certain such a shape.
Right.
So those are all what is a saguna thing. So with the initial part of our practices, we take some saguna, meaning some form of some shape, color, attribute, and we meditate on that. That in itself is not the goal of all these practices. The goal of all these practices is that you know your true nature. And as we were talking, you find that ultimate happiness.
Right.
And where is this ultimate happiness? This ultimate happiness is knowing yourself, your true self.
But I want to tell you something about my own journey.
Sure,
for me, this whole thing, it's part of a pursuit of saying that in the Indian tradition, there's a lot of depth of knowledge.
Yes.
Much of it is intensely practical if we want to make it so.
Yes.
In a day-to-day kind of thing. And that often sometimes we see the grand intellectual nature of it. That sometimes, we spend so much time on that we are not entirely certain how does it translate in a day-to-day thing for us. And so I've been very much interested in finding people such as yourselves who know a lot about the grander, the larger picture of things, but has also made the effort to actually translate that for people, which then gets into day-to-day life. Every day you wake up in the morning, and when I was talking to you, that really clicked in my head, saying, this is what I'm really looking for. So that's one of the reasons I want to know more about the practice.
Okay.
And how does it actually work?
Yeah. So here Nirguna meditation is actually, you can say, like 24/7, All our activities in our daily life, on what attitude we approach that, and also how do we, what is the vision? What is our ultimate vision? If our ultimate vision is in line with a deeper reality, then every activity in our life is naturally transformed. We don't even need to make an effort and say like, okay, this moment I will be mindful or I'll meditate. That vision itself transforms everything you see. So like just like how we are talking now, and it's
effortless.
Yes, the natural flow in that.
When I was thinking about the name to encompass this idea of what, to take this knowledge to the world.
Yeah.
And I came upon, and it's been a word that I've liked for a long time, Leela.
Leela,
The whole idea of, the lightness of life and the playfulness of life, and all of that, which is, it's almost impossible to sort of, fully translate it into, let's say, an English context, but I think it captures all of those ideas, right?
Right.
So it's wonderful to hear that, which is what it is all about, right? So you have this practice, and from this practice emerges your ability to be in that state at all points in time in the day. So Swamiji, before we get into that, the depth of the knowledge, I want to go back slightly to something we discussed earlier, which is your journey. And in that, I just want to pick one thing: your journey into Rishikesh, the place. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
It's actually interesting that I first came here about 27, 28 years ago, in my mid-20s. My first impression seeing these mountains and all that was that I've been here before. This was it's like as though, it's like meeting a friend after a long time. One was that, and the second was that although I had seen a lot of mountains in different places, there was something special about these mountains. And the very first time, that I saw them, I knew that there was something else, but I was not able to put it into words. I was not able to, say like, this is it, this is unique, or this is different about it. So at that time I was involved with something, but the tour actually ended up so much that after I finished traveling the Char Dham and the few places I wanted to see, I decided to stay put for a while longer. And at that time it was just, I thought, okay, a few days, But slowly that few days grew into a few months. And then I kept coming back and forth many times, and then eventually, many years back, I decided, okay, there's no point going back anywhere else.
The call was too strong.
Yes.
No, I think it's one of those things, as I was mentioning to you, for me too, and in a very, in ordinary life, and some few years ago, I discovered that, when I came to Rishikesh, there's some reason, something to come back, and it's very difficult to put into words why you want to go back. All right. Okay. So that's on Rishikesh. So let's sort of shift gears again and go back to the sources of the knowledge that drive this practice of Nirguna meditation. And you told me in earlier conversations with me that the two big pillars on which this rests. One is the Vedanta side of things, and the other is the Tibetan Buddhist sort of practices, because you felt that those practices very strong in delivering. So let's talk about both. What did you learn from this, and then how did you sort of fuse them? Maybe we talk about that.
So, as you know, originally India had this rich heritage of yoga, which of course Rishikesh and many places here are well known for. So there's a lot more to that yoga practice than just the asanas and even pranayama and all that. I feel somewhere in the Indian, evolution and progress, some aspect of it was lost. So what ended up now as Vajrayana Buddhism, is that something that was there in India at one time.
Right.
And which was for years preserved in this country where not many people were going in and out,
Tibet.
in Tibet.
Right.
Tibetans had a lot of practices which directly are what is called as the non-dualism, the non-dualistic practices. So there, you get to that through certain what is called as pointers from teachers, and but there is two paths very clearly, as you said. The Vedanta path is a scriptural path.
Okay.
You have to study the scriptures, and like how we do here, in our ashrams and all that, we study it in Sanskrit, the commentaries in Sanskrit. And we take the help of bhashyas from Shankaracharya and all
Right.
that. And so, but what happens is that for many people it becomes theoretical. There is no way to translate it in your life. So it sometimes becomes like you subscribe to one philosophy, you leave another kind of thing, So, but the Vajrayana Buddhism, I noticed, was like they may not directly go right to that highest teachings, but they are very good at translating that.
The practice itself is, the techniques are...
the techniques are imbued with that core teachings.
So for people who are very early in the process,
Yes.
who haven't done any of this, and for whom meditation itself is new, of course they've
Yes.
probably done a little bit of the, watching your breath or Om or whatever. What do you offer to them?
Yeah, so there are traditionally two ways. One is that path of studying the Vedantic texts. So
Right.
even now I teach Vedantic texts.
Right. And that can start from very early introductory,
yes.
Just starting to understand
Absolutely.
the Vedic tradition, the Vedantic tradition, and then
Yes.
from there moving on to
all the, like we have in Vedanta, all the Prakarana texts, so you start with the basic text.
Right.
You can study all that, and then gradually you study the Upanishads and all that.
But all of that, it is possible to integrate into your life.
Absolutely.
Right.
That is the ultimate purpose.
That is the point,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So Swamiji, now we've traversed a long path
Yes.
now in terms of multiple things that we've discussed. Now I want to get into how does all of this, the Nirguna meditation and the other practices that you teach, how does it change my life, an individual's life?
See, at a very practical level, some of the things that most of us have challenges with, is one is the habits of life, how we live our life.
Right.
These days, of course, we are addicted to a lot of things. If not like drinks and other things, just our own smartphones and all that. We can spend hours in that,
Correct.
and we know how that gnaws into other aspects of our life.
Correct. Correct.
And then the other aspect is that, see, there's a constant sense of fear or anxiety about the future. We all carry.
Yeah.
Even though if we don't know about it. In fact, even in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, one of the biggest kleshas they say is fear of death. We all carry that. It's at a very subconscious level.
Correct.
And then there is other things which we think we carry from our past, like the traumas and things.
Right.
And they have a way of subconsciously and even consciously guiding us. We fear taking some actions which we should take for
And
our
we don't
progress.
know why we are scared of doing that. But
So a lot of these can these play at the psychological level, physiological level.
Right.
At the very fundamental level, what is happening when our vision is right, what happens is that our whole perspective to life changes, and that struggle we do constantly to change these habits.
But how does the practice play into this? How does it address that?
Yes. So what the practices does is slowly and daily, it changes you at three levels. Okay. One is at the level of your interactions with people. My perceptions, my interactions with people. At that level, it starts playing out, and so I start seeing that this essential thing which I take to give me happiness, when that internal shift has started happening, then the outward, my grasping at that starts to loosen. Because that inward thing starts telling me, that this is what I'm grasping at. So I don't need to necessarily kind of figure out like, okay, this food itself will not give me happiness, or this, seeking after this thing, I should stop that. So I don't have to consciously like do like all, sometimes, we can get too obsessed with all this mindfulness and all this, like what is my thoughts, so it's endless, these processes. But if your inner shift has happened, and what the practice is doing is working at this inner level, that perspective, that vision that you do. So that first level is at the perception. Second level is at the level of your thoughts and feelings. So where does this all start? When it starts from that subjective level. When I realize my true inner happiness or what I truly am, then slowly the thoughts I'm having, those thoughts are not that much based on, driven by my senses. Those thoughts are then guided by my internal sense of well-being. When I find my true home, then I don't have to keep looking outside. Where will I stay, where will I go and all that. I know there is this home within me, no matter what happens. So that all that fears, which drives our activities, what this practice is telling you is that you come home. And then what happens is your thinking changes, your perception changes. So much so that at that point where that day you grasp at that thing that you shouldn't be doing, like maybe that drink or the chocolate or the drugs or whatever, that immediately you realize like this is not going to really give me happiness. But it takes some time, but this is where that real shift happens.
So that's great. So that's perception.
Yes.
And then there is thoughts
and feelings. And then the third is that subjective sense of who I am. This is that, where in our mind we have a subjective sense of who I am.
Yeah, which we've built.
We have built through our interaction with the world and through my sense perceptions,
This is really interesting. So Swamiji, you know what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
I'm going to try a little difficult thing with myself.
Okay.
I'm going to try and summarize
Sure.
this entire thing that I have this thing into a few propositions.
Okay.
Right? So here's what I hear. First, the purpose of all of this at the end is to address things like fears and addictions and obsessions. The technique itself, the practice itself involves two broad streams that converge.
Yes.
And what you're therefore saying is, one is the knowledge and the sort of, in a word, the theory of the great Vedanta tradition. And you couple the techniques, which is kind of inherent in it uses the Vedantic knowledge, but a far more evolved the techniques of the Vajrayana tradition, Buddhism tradition. So you bring these two together to create a practice.
Yes.
And what this practice does is to operate it in three things.
Yes.
On your perceptions.
Yes.
On your thoughts and feelings.
Yes.
And on the subjective sense of who you are.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So if you do all of this,
you
get the benefits that your fears start to disappear.
Yes.
And your addictions and your obsessions start to go away.
Absolutely.
Would that be a reasonable?
Absolutely. I think that'll be, I would say one addition here. The practice is dropping that wrong sense of reality and coming to the ultimate proper sense of reality. But everything else, what you said is very well put. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much, Swamiji. I think, for me, what a takeaway. What a takeaway. I'm able to sort of see now all of this in such a wonderful clarity.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Swamiji. No, but I'm not going to let you go.
Okay.
Can you give me a little bit of a glimpse into the practice?
I can definitely do that.
All right. Let's do that. Thanks, Swamiji.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Okay, so shall we begin?
Yes.
So we will, as I mentioned before, there is no need to specifically sit in one fixed asanas and all that, but it helps to sit in some comfortable postures. And in India, we are used to the meditation postures. But here again, it's more relaxed kind of thing. Even yoga thing, it says sukhasana, right? Or whatever is your comfort. So for the first time, we can just do a couple of deep breathing that helps to calm the body and the mind. Just at your own pace, we can just take a couple of deep breaths and relax. Just exhale out a little longer, deeper, so that way we let go of any negative, restless energy in the body. And then, as a natural process of our breathing, we can become aware of our breathing itself. No need to focus so much on that, just be aware that breathing is going on. So in this meditation, the main thing is to bring our awareness to awareness itself, just to become aware of the Ganga that's flowing. So just as the flowing, gentle flow of Ganga, lot of things are in movement in our body. There is movement of blood, there's movement of air in our lungs, in and out. Then there is, at the mental level, our thoughts. So all these are also in movement. Now, just as we are aware while looking at this river and the background of this Himalayan mountains, there is a deep abiding stillness in the Himalayan mountains. And this stillness makes it possible for us to become aware of the movement of the Ganga. This awareness is the true essence of my being. It is my true nature. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And gently, as you open your eyes, you can hold on to that sense of awareness. And from that space of awareness, you can move, you can talk, knowing that in this awareness, in this activity of my body, my speech, my mind, is this background awareness, which is always pure, which is always of that one essential nature of my own being. Namaste.
My journey continues. Please join me on my next exploration.